it's not uncommon each year for Bitcoin to give up 50% of its value, and that's certainly been the case here. Ethereum, same thing. And so that's the volatility that will be inherent in crypto until there's policy. I remain bullish on crypto from the perspective of productivity. And so I think if you're buying projects, and I've always said this, Bitcoin is not a coin, it's software. Ethereum software, Solana software, Helium software, Pollen is software. All of these different projects around different sectors of the economy. Solana may be better ultimately for transactional speed because Ethereum is pretty slow. So we don't know which one of these projects is going to win. But the whole premise is that you want these for financial services. And I still believe that in 10 years, crypto will be the 12th sector of the economy, but all the existing tokens will not exist. There'll be many that just go to zero because they were highly speculative, they were fun, they had no real intrinsic financial services value.
The famous Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, told CNBC in a recent meeting that 20% of his investment holdings are invested in cryptocurrencies and companies operating within the nascent digital asset industry. O'Leary stated on Squawk Box that 20% of his entire portfolio is now invested in cryptocurrencies and blockchain. Cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and other tokens, have grabbed the attention of high-profile investors like hedge fund manager Paul Tudor Jones and fund manager Bill Miller. Many tout Bitcoin as a long-term store of value, while there is also a raft of smaller digital tokens. With around $20 billion taken in by investors so far, the industry is attracting billions of dollars of investments from venture capitalists. In addition, the asset class remains volatile, which also contributes to its highly speculative nature. Regulators like Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Gary Gensler have warned about the lack of investor protection, saying that a pump-and-dump scheme is at play in certain digital tokens. Among crypto's detractors, billionaire entrepreneur and Berkshire Hathaway vice chairman Charlie Munger has also been critical of digital currencies and their volatility. In February, he said he wished the U.S. had banned them. Buffett is no fan either, calling Bitcoin in 2018 rat poison squared. Others have likened Bitcoin to a Ponzi scheme. When asked if crypto would be around for a decade, you have to be diversified. I own 32 different positions, including equity FTX itself, O'Leary said while disclosing he's paid a spokesperson for the cryptocurrency exchange, founded by 30-year-old billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried.
I'm looking for opportunities. I'm a shareholder in FTX. I have to disclose that. I'm also a paid spokesperson for Sam. Happy to do that. But I also find companies like Immutable Holdings that's doing NFT.com. That's infrastructure. Another one called WonderFi that's buying all the regulated exchanges to service banks, like in countries like Canada. BitZero, we talked about. It's a private company, but I'm 100% behind that for sustainable mining and working with them in all these different state and different countries. It's a very collaborative way of working. And a good example is Ryan, FTX's CEO. He introduced me to the government in Georgia.
Yeah.
And I'm way down the rabbit hole in Georgia now, buying assets in their country, even though it's right beside Russia. But I have an opinion about that. I think Russians are pretty busy right now in the Ukraine and not doing so well. So I think at the end of the day, I'm not that worried about Georgia because it's a very entrepreneurial place. I don't think it's of much interest to them.
In recent times, major investment firms have also been pouring capital into blockchain and cryptocurrency unicorns. O'Leary commented on one such recent deal, the announcement of BlackRock and Fidelity putting $400 million into USDC, the Circle product. That's unprecedented for such staid financial services companies to make a bet that large on cryptocurrency.
Circle, the company that issues USDC, was able to raise $200 million from Fidelity and $200 million from BlackRock. That's unprecedented in equity for the company. So that's signaling that that type of stable coin is favored by institutional investors versus the others, which look like they were retail products. So you've got all this speculative stuff. The NFTs have corrected. The Las Vegas side of crypto has had a nightmarish correction. And I think that's very good in the sense that it helps separate the wheat from the chaff, or the cream from the milk, if you wish, whatever analogy you want, because the traditional projects have remained relatively stable. Sure, they've had a correction, but it's not uncommon each year for Bitcoin to give up 50% of its value, and that's certainly been the case here. Ethereum, same thing. And so that's the volatility that will be inherent in crypto until there's policy.
When asked about crypto regulation, Leary said nothing's going to happen until after the midterms. Biden is not interested in discussing crypto when his poll ratings are, whatever it is, sub 31%. That's not a place where he wants to go, so you're going to have to wait until after the midterms. Mr. Wonderful noted that when Biden issued the encouraging executive order on crypto, his ratings were higher. A new poll shows that President Joe Biden's approval rating dipped to the lowest point of his presidency in May. Only 39% of U.S. adults approve of his performance as president. Kevin is right on the stablecoin side of things, as projects with strong fundamentals and clear long-term vision with a real-world use case will stand the test of time. Mr. Wonderful was also asked if he thinks this crypto winter will be a long one and where the market will head now.
The forecasts of Bitcoin have never been accurate. No one's been able to forecast its volatility. And the speculation that it was going to be a hedge against inflation was just flat out wrong. And that didn't work. And maybe it will work one day, but I'd argue that the volatility on Bitcoin is going to remain very akin to what Amazon was for its first 15 years, 30 to 50% corrections every 12 months, because there was no institutional support in the early days of Amazon. It was a retail product as people that started to use the service bought the stock. That's the same right now for Bitcoin. There is no, people talk about institutions owning it. That's just not true. They don't own any of it, and they won't until the SEC rules on it. There is some institutional ownership in the Canadian market by Canadian institutions because they can use the ETF and equity mandates, but that's Canada. They were the first to allow an ETF with Bitcoin as the underlying. They also allowed an Ethereum ETF, and so those are positioned, but they're inside of equity mandates. The actual ownership of Bitcoin itself remains elusive to the institution because of their own compliance departments. And on top of that, no infrastructure for compliance. There's no way to market into any of these systems the price of Bitcoin or whether it's levered or not during the day, the way you can with stocks that have been treated that way for decades. So there's so much work to be done.
Seems Kevin O'Leary has a real long-term vision and a calculated and diversified crypto portfolio that he thinks will fetch him good returns in the future. Though there's turbulence in the current market conditions, the institutional side of things are starting to spice up. Fidelity recently said it was going to start allowing Bitcoin into retirement plans. Canada has already launched its crypto TEF. With more and more adoptions and acceptance of the blockchain technology as observed globally, what do you think of O'Leary's prediction and his long-term view on Bitcoin and the crypto industry? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below.